A remarkable story. It's in all the papers again today. A former soldier has been sentenced after driving a car. He was drunk and he caused the death of 2 teenage girls. The drunken soldier killed 2 promising teenage athletes who were on a training run by crashing his car into them on a pedestrian crossing. Stacey Barrows was 16, Lucy Pygott was 17. Michael Casey, the driver, 24, was over the drink drive limit. A court heard he was distracted, get this, by vomit in the back of his black Ford Focus left by a colleague he'd earlier given a lift home. He was sentenced to 6 years, which will see him eligible for release on licence after only 3. When the sentence was read out, but the Barrows' mother, that's Stacey Barrows' mother, Helen, cried out from the public gallery, "I don't get my daughter back in 3 years, do I?" Harrowing, poignant, traumatic. How can that sentence possibly be fair? Let's talk now to Joseph Kotrie-Monson, who's director at Monson Solicitors on Fleet Street and is a specialist in serious criminal cases. Joseph, morning to you.
Good morning, Andrew.
It's a harrowing case. There's photographs in all the papers of these girls. They look absolutely adorable. They're great friends. They had very promising lives ahead of them. Most people do when they're 16 or 17. Snapped away from them by a drink driver. He'll be out in 3 years. Can that possibly be fair?
Well, first of all, Andrew, you've taken the words out of my mouth. This is an incredibly tragic case. 2 rising stars in athletics. Who could fail to be moved reading that story and seeing those photos of those 2 bright young girls? And it's, of course, right when the mother, in a victim personal statement read out at court, must have been an incredibly poignant moment, talked of the car that man was driving as a lethal weapon. And, of course, however we underestimate it, using cars every day, driving in a slapdash, reckless manner, it means you risk taking a life, and in this terrible case, 2 have been taken. You know, on the flip side, and it's something that the judge will have considered, and it's not the focus of what we're saying here, but we have to look at this objectively and in a balanced way. A young man with an exceptional record, who we know has risked his life serving his country, did a tour in Afghanistan. Of course, his life will never be the same again. And of course, a common and very understandable first reaction is the emotional one. And it is the one that a parent would always have. And you could never blame them for having that. When somebody takes a life, their life should be taken. Or at least they should be sent to prison for life. And that's the first gut reaction we have. Of course, sentencing... You know, there are a number of problems with that, and that's why we have courts which aren't just judges off on a jolly like the papers often present, but they're actually judges following guidelines which have been set by government. And that sentencing must be an objective and a fair process, not just an emotional one.
The witness statement you referred to, the mother said, "Mr. Casey, that's the soldier, has broken our precious family. We are lost without Lucy. The British Army trained soldiers to kill. Mr. Casey killed his loaded weapon of a hot hatch car." That's the point, isn't it, Joseph? Because there are strict sentences, stiff sentences if a young man stabs somebody to death or uses a gun. But a car in the wrong hands is an equally lethal weapon as a young man, whether he's drunk or sober. A car is an equally lethal weapon.
Well, I've represented men and women, drunk and sober, on similar cases, and the thing that always sticks in my mind is just how much we underestimate as members of the public how dangerous cars can be, whether you're drunk or not. But it's with respect, I think, probably inaccurate, Andrew, to suggest that we should be dealing with people who kill somebody intending to kill them in the same way as people who cause deaths recklessly, because we would have no distinction then between murderers, actual people who go out to kill people, and somebody who does it even with a lot of blame by accident, and that simply can't make sense. In this case, there are of course aggravating features. 2 victims. They were on foot, and therefore they were vulnerable road users. They were young, and there was this evidence of drunkenness, and it looks like substantial drunkenness. Given that, before considering mitigation, the judge was probably starting at around a 10-year a 10-year point before considering any mitigation on the other side. Of course, he gives a third off for an early guilty plea. And one might think, well, that seems like quite a lot. But of course, Andrew, that is something which greatly motivates defendants to not want a trial and massively reduces the stress for victims who are waiting for an outcome of a trial, because there's just more of a chance that the guilty plea will come in early. And of course, there was a statement read out, I think, by the solicitor of the young man who's done this, in which his obvious remorse and about the fact that he will never forgive himself was clear and compelling. Now, of course, that's not the be-all and end-all, but that may well have provided him a little bit more credit. You can see, actually, given the guidelines not set by judges, but set by government, that actually 6 years was about right.
All right, well, that's Joseph Kotrie-Monson, director at Mary Monson Solicitors on Fleet Street, and they specialise in serious criminal cases, and as Joseph said, he's represented many people who have been behind the wheels of a car when they're drunk.